Welcome to the 100th episode of the Podcast Interview Marketing Show. I'm your host, Tom Schwab, and today we're celebrating more than just a milestone episode. We're diving into a milestone mindset shift. You see, nearly a decade ago, I was introduced to the idea of category design. Since then, it's changed how I looked at the world, and it's evolved into something even more powerful, more timely, and more applicable to everyone listening. It's what today's guest calls the rise of the creator capitalist. I'm honored to welcome a friend, a mentor, and a visionary, Christopher Lochhead. Now, he's one of the godfathers of category design. And in this special episode, we're unpacking why the knowledge economy, well, it's dead, and how AI is turning old playbooks into obsolete PDFs, and what this means for you. Because here's the truth. The best podcast guests aren't repeating what the market already knows. They're creating net new value. They're evangelizing bold points of view, and they're leading the economy into new and uncharted territory. If you want to understand how to stand out in a world that is just drowning in content, how to be valued in a world that has been commoditized, or how to become a category of one in the ears and the mind of your ideal customers, well, then this episode will forever change the way you view the world and show up every time on an interview from now on. On this 100th episode of the Podcast Interview Marketing Show, I'm so honored to have Christopher Lochhead here. Christopher is then a mentor to the company, a friend to the company, and he's really shown me where the world is going. And that was 10 years ago with category design. And now this idea that we're no more knowledge workers, right? It's all about creator capitalists. And I see the best guests are the ones that know this and embrace it. Welcome, Christopher.
Tom, it's so great to see you. You know, I'm a huge fan. I love all things Tom and Karen Schwab, and I love all things Interview Valet.
Well, let's unpack this a little bit. You know, in category design, it's the Frodo, right? From to. So knowledge worker was always what we were paid to do. Can you talk about how the world it's not going to change. It already has changed.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I don't know why this isn't on the cover of the Wall Street Journal every freaking day. So here's the aha. So roughly 70 years ago, Peter Drucker wrote a book, I think it was called Land of Tomorrow, something like that. And he introduces the concept of knowledge worker as a category of a new category of work, a new category of worker to distinguish those of us who work with our muscles from those of us who work with our minds. And if you look up the definition of knowledge worker, what you'll see is a knowledge worker is essentially somebody who acquires high value knowledge and gets paid to apply that knowledge to affect some kind of a result or an outcome. And that's why your mother wanted you to be a doctor or a lawyer or maybe an accountant, you know, a known profession with a designation and a certification and so forth that was somebody who clearly knew valuable things and got paid because of that. And that worked for 70 years. That was true. Well, here's what's changed with AI. When you think about what AI is really doing, AI makes the value of existing knowledge closer to zero every day. And it makes the ability to apply existing knowledge easier and easier, cheaper and cheaper, closer to zero every day, particularly as we move to agents, what we're calling the agentic future, and AI automations, basically where AI can trigger a whole set of outcomes in of itself. So if you're somebody who has been paid because you acquired high-end valuable knowledge, which you then apply to affect a result, you're fucked. And this is the big aha. Today, AI is smarter than any lawyer you're ever going to talk to, any accountant you're ever going to talk to. And even in our world of category design, our internal AI, which we call Lucy, is smarter about category design than I am or than Eddie is. And so this is true for all existing knowledge. And so the aha here is, well, then who's going to be successful going forward? who's going to be successful going forward are not the people who apply existing knowledge, but the people who can create net new knowledge and monetize it on an ongoing basis. And that's what you could think of as a creator capitalist, somebody who creates new things, often with AI, that are highly valuable. And as a result of those new creations, whether they're products, services, intellectual capital, content, what have you, that's how they make a difference in the world. And so we're shifting from applying knowledge to creating things of value with knowledge.
And as you say that, I think of what I tell podcast guests, right? Nobody wants to know the history of something, or the podcast should not be about the 5 best ways to make 6 figures in 6 seconds, right? That's a stupid blog post. You could ask AI that, right? No, they want to talk about the big ideas. Where's the puck going? Where's the future? And as you talk about it, it's what is the net new information you have, right? ChatGPT can tell me the past. I want you to show me what the future is supposed to be.
That's exactly right. And so many of us have lived our entire careers working inside the status quo, working inside existing market categories with known problems and known solutions. And really, when you look at it, most of us have spent most of our careers working in existing markets with existing companies, with existing processes, with existing problems and solutions. And our job is to manage that, grow that, and incrementally improve that. Now, there's still going to be some of that for sure, but the reality is that's all low-hanging fruit for AI. And so it is the people who are on the edge of creating the new and different futures, the new categories of thinking, the new categories of products, the new categories of services and capabilities, using AI to multiply themselves and therefore multiply the value that they can create. And so we have moved from a apply knowledge world to a create intellectual capital world that can be monetized with AI. And so the people who do that are literally going to be the most innovative and the most productive human beings ever. And the people who don't are going to have a hard time getting a job.
And I love it because the barriers to entry are lower, right? You don't have to wait and go through, 12 years of education and get a piece of paper from Harvard to say that you have something to offer now. No, it's really the creativity on it and tapping into that knowledge. Remember on your show, you talked about some high school kid that had figured out how to listen to different EKGs and be able to say which ones or which heartbeats
That's right.
had problems there. And he didn't have a medical degree. He didn't have a piece of paper from MIT. No, he just had an idea. He saw a problem and he solved it. And that was that net new category that he started.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the exciting thing about all this is AI is the greatest innovation in the history of humanity. It's not even close. And new categories create new categories. And so AI is the fastest growing category of anything ever created. In October of 2022, the sum total demand for generative AI was 0. ChatGPT launched in November. Generative AI is the fastest growing category of product or service ever invented. And OpenAI is the fastest growing startup of all time. And AI is this breakthrough new category of technology that's allowing us to create more breakthrough new categories than anything ever. It's the most exciting time to be alive. We are at the beginning of a whole new definition of what it is to be a human being. What living, working, and playing in a post-AI world, we are creating that now. And like a lot of things, there's some people leading the parade. There's some people watching the parade. And there's a lot of people going, there was a parade?
And the great thing is that the barriers to entry, like you said, are so much lower, right? You could be young and have the blessing of ignorance to not know that you can't do something, or you can be more seasoned like us and know the right questions to ask and understand what the problems are. And even the idea of getting out there, right? And maybe we could talk a little bit about this. How do you get your new idea out there? Because in the past it was, well, I need venture capital to get, my servers and build this up. And then I've got to buy some ads on Wall Street Journal or the cover of whatever. And now it's like, it's so leveled that the ability to execute is so quick, and the avenues to evangelize your category are so available.
Yeah, exactly. And the opportunities to do different. So I'll give you the latest one in my life. So we have a new book, and we put that book up already on Amazon. And we're planning the launch of the book, what we call a lightning strike, around the holiday season, because it's a great book for a holiday and it's a great year-end book. The book's called Lightning Strike Marketing, and it's all about this new model of marketing where you'd rather do something really big in a short period of time in a concentrated way against a clearly defined set of targets and audience that you care about, potential customers, or what in category design is called super consumers. And I'd rather matter for a day to my most important customers than be irrelevant all year long. That's essentially what the strategy behind a lightning strike is. Okay. So we put the book up because, as you know, sometimes it can take Amazon a while. And we for the first time, we're sort of planning to have the book live for about a month and then do the lightning strike. And we told a few people, we've told, friends that it's out, but we haven't really started any of the marketing. We've not done any paid marketing. So that's point A. Point B, we started to think about, okay, in this world where essentially AI is commoditizing existing knowledge, in order to demonstrate to the world that your new intellectual capital is valuable and shouldn't be commoditized, you have to declare it as such. So this morning, Eddie and Katrina and I were talking to the legendary Joe Pine, the co-author of The Experience Economy, and he's got a brand new book coming out soon on transformations. We believe he's one of the smartest guys that's ever lived in the business world. We hold him in very high regard on the Mount Rushmore of business thinking. His first book, The Experience Economy, came out in 1999, 1998, somewhere in there. And we asked him today, what was the price of that book? It was $25. The average price of a business book today is roughly the same. How can that be after more than 25 years? Makes no sense. Publishers and authors, in our opinion, are devaluing their work. In addition, AI is commoditizing their work. So what did we do with our new Lightning Strike marketing book? It's $100. And we didn't begin marketing it. And we're going to use the price of the book as the central theme for the strike for all the reasons we just talked about. Well, woke up this morning to find out that our new $100 Lightning Strike marketing book is number one in global marketing on Amazon. So then we went out to Claude, ChatGPT, Grok, and Perplexity, and we asked them all the same thing. Has there ever been a $100 marketing book hit number one on Amazon's global marketing charts? The answer to that question, according to all those AIs, is no. Okay. We asked marketing experts, we're thinking about charging $100 for our book, and this is the reason why, what I just explained to you. Basically putting a flag out there saying, this shit's really valuable. Our knowledge is not commoditized. This is net new knowledge. It's incredibly valuable. You can't get it on the AIs. And we're saying it's valuable by declaring it $100, right? Because people value what they pay for. So that's why we did it. Well, it turns out just by pricing the book at $100, that in of itself is a lightning strike that's driving word of mouth. Every expert we talk to, Tom, marketing experts, no one's going to buy a marketing book that costs $100. Publishing industry experts, nobody's going to buy a business book that costs $100. We woke up this morning and found out it's number one in global marketing on Amazon. And so what's my point? The biggest barrier to success going forward is listening to the status quo. And if you're a creator, an author, somebody that is historically been in quote unquote the knowledge economy, unless you declare you are valuable, you will be devalued by AI. And so we purposely declared our value to set ourselves above. And we now have the first $100 marketing book to ever hit number one in global marketing on Amazon.com. And so I share this with you because we think it's emblematic of what we need to do to become a creator capitalist going forward. You need to create highly differentiated intellectual capital that is highly valuable as measured by the difference that it makes to others. You have to be declarative about that value. In our case, we're declaring the $100 business book is a new category of business book. And we're now leading that category. And it works. And this is what we believe everybody who's in the thinking business needs to do, is to create a new category that you can dominate, and in specific, create value where there wasn't any perceived value before around your highly differentiated intellectual capital, your creations, your point of view, your research, your insights, etc.
I'm going to push back on that with a question, because I can think of the existing marketing trap that you and Al Ramadan wrote. That was like a $50 book, wasn't it? And
Yep.
I when I saw that, I looked at that and I bought that regardless, right? You guys could do a coloring book together and I'd buy $50. I hope the crayons are included there too. But I read that book and it's not a long book, right? And I look at that book and I'd rather pay $50 for 100 pages that tells me exactly what I want. Right. And what to do, as opposed to spending, 99 cents on a Kindle.
That's right.
Kindle thing for a 500-page book. So do you think that would have worked had you not had the reputation capital, right? If you and Eddie and Katrina would not have that following that you have had from being out there in the public, evangelizing it, the ideas and the problem before you put that out there?
I think that gives us a huge advantage, of course, because we have, 40 years of reputation capital that we built by starting companies, taking companies public, creating products, category designing new markets, and, a long track record that speaks for itself. The Lightning Strike marketing book is my 15th number one bestseller, right? So yeah. Absolutely. If you're going to pull a move like that, having a track record of making a difference and delivering value for others is huge. However, it might work for somebody who's a new author. It certainly is a bold move. And it certainly is something that will get the world talking. Why is this book $100?
I remember David C. Baker wrote The Business of Expertise, and it's a beautiful book. It's like coffee table quality. And when we first started working with him, I'm like, why is it so expensive? And he said, to my clients, it's not expensive, right? They're not going to buy a 99 cent book, $50 for them. They'll get the value out of it. And he is so right on there. So that's interesting.
It-
You're
it's
telling
a
the
flex.
world
It is absolutely a flex. For sure, it's a flex.
but it's also going after the market, right? You don't want to be seen as just run of the mill. And that's one of the things that I tell people as a podcast guest, right? When I hear somebody come up and it's like, well, what do you do? I'm a full service digital marketing agency. It's like, oh, you're warm water, right? Tell me a point of view. Tell me something you believe in. Make me turn you up or turn you off.
100%. And it's, look, it all comes down to the simple category design reality. Different versus better. Better invites a choice, better than something that already exists. The minute you say better, you're in the existing market trap. So better invites a comparison. You even hear idiots in marketing say this, well, don't take my word for it, Jim. Listen to law. Why would you ever say, don't take my word for it? You're undermining yourself. I mean, marketing people say and do some of the dumbest shit, right? Different forces a choice. So when you say, listen, I think there's about 80,000 marketing books on Amazon. I'd have to double check. It's somewhere in that range. Maybe it's 50. It's somewhere in that range. Okay. Well, not many of them as a percentage are $100. So that in of itself is different. And it does force a choice. It's like, well, these guys think this book is, am I going to throw down $100 for this book? Or am I going to buy one of the other 80,000 or 50,000 or whatever the number is marketing books on Amazon? It does force a choice. And because there are very few other marketing books that cost $100, there's very few, if any, comparisons.
Well, and I would also point out there that if I spend 99 cents on a book, I may or may not read it. If I spend $100 on a book, I'm going to implement it. So that idea.
And that's another thing. This book, as distinct from books that we've written in the past, is for practitioners. It is an execution book. It is how you go and do a very different kind of marketing campaign called a lightning strike, as distinct from what most people do, which is peanut butter marketing. They just spread their resources. And lightning is very, very focused. And so this is for somebody who says, I have a huge new product launch. I have a huge new company launch. I want to go public. I'm going to announce a major acquisition that we've just done, or some other seminal event. When it's really important, launch a lightning strike. Here's what most people don't understand. In every new market category, there is an 18 to 36 month battle that happens for who's ultimately going to be the category queen or king. And as you and I both know, the category queen earns 76% of the total economics in any new category. And so you only have a handful. If you say you're doing 2 to 3 strikes a year, you only have a handful of strikes to either become the category king or not. So when you do a lightning strike, you're doing it because the future of your business is at stake and getting it right matters. Therefore, $100 is free.
Yeah. So one of the things I hear people talk about is a category of one. And I struggle with that. It's like, can you have a category if there's only one player in it? And I think of, example of you use a lot is bourbon, right? Who's the category king of bourbon? Jack Daniels, right? Malort, right? If you're from Chicago, if you've ever had a shot of Malort, it's the nastiest liquor out there. But I can't say that they are the category king of bad liquor, right? Because there's not a category for it. They're definitely known. They're definitely different. If you've ever tasted it once, there's nothing, you'll never forget it. But this idea, can you be a category of one, or do you start the category and other people come along on that?
So the ideal scenario is you want multiple people in the category. Oh, this is our this is our dog Bean.
That's the dog that looks like a cat.
Correct. He's a cat, but hi Bean. He literally just jumped on the desk. But can you hear him purring?
I can.
But he identifies as a dog. He's my buddy, and he hangs out with me. So he clearly likes his Uncle Tom and wants to be part of the program. Okay, you're just not allowed to fool around with the computer here, Bean. So to make a market as big as possible, you want a lot of people in the market. So ideally, if you're building a very big business, the more people in the category that help you build the category, the better. And we know that the category king will ultimately earn, on average, 76%. That is absolutely true. Now, what's category design at its simplest level? It's differentiation. And the more it is hard for you to be replaced, the more differentiated you are. So, is it possible to be a category of one? Absolutely. It's harder for a business to be a category of one. Where you see more categories of one are with people. And so where somebody's so specialized, they're the only one that does it, or they're one of very, very few, and they're the clear market leader. So you do see it in some companies, but if you think about your world, the podcast world, where you have thought leaders who have written books, who have podcasts, who have Substacks, who are out there promoting their ideas, selling their courses, selling their books, and all that, could you argue that Malcolm Gladwell is a big thinker and that's the category? Sure. And are there many people in that category? Absolutely. And he has a reputation for being somebody who can take a powerful unknown insight that is non-obvious and make it obvious to the world at scale. And so in that sense, he stands alone, or he stands with very few. So you could argue that he's a category of one. And so a person can be a category of one. In certain geographies, you can be a category of one. So for example, in Detroit, there's a lot of Detroit-style pizza. In Santa Cruz, California, where I live, there's only one. It's called Bookies. And because Bookies is in California and they foo-foo it up and California it up a little here, their category design is not Detroit pizza, but what they call inauthentic Detroit pizza. If you want inauthentic Detroit pizza, there's a category of one in Santa Cruz, California for that. And they stand out. They're radically differentiated because every other pizza in California, in Santa Cruz, California, doesn't even try category design. So it's like, oh, do you feel like X pizza or Y pizza? Oh, well, I feel like, they make this pizza that I like better than that. But again, now you're having a better conversation. Bookies, inauthentic Detroit pizza, forces a choice. Do I want regular pizza or do I want inauthentic Detroit pizza? And therefore, in that sense, they're a category of one in a similar way as to how Gladwell is like a category of one.
And I've seen it where it's like, you're going to have some competitor come in there and say, well, we offer Detroit style pizza too. And people will say, oh, they're like Bookies, right? Better idea. Let's just go there. Or
That's exactly right.
He's sort of like Malcolm Gladwell. And everybody starts talking about Malcolm Gladwell on there. And that's
correct.
One of the things that
This is why the executives at Pepsi on January 1st of every year for the last 70 years have Venmo'd their marketing budget to Coke. Right? Because when I say Pepsi tastes better than Coke, 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 what's in your mind?
The category king of Coke.
Right. Thank you very much for the free marketing.
And, we met, that was like 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago when Play Bigger came out, right? One of my favorite books here. It's changed my life and my business. And this idea of starting to say different things, and you control the conversations, right? All of a sudden, other people were talking about, well, we do white glove service, right? Oh, like our logo, right? Or we do concierge service, right? Oh, that's what we call our people, right? All of that. And even the idea of it's not podcast guesting, it's podcast interview marketing. And and when people see that there's the difference, it's hard to unsee that. So the power of podcasts, I don't think can be over exaggerated. And I think you are a great example of this too. Can you share a little bit? Because a decade ago, you were just starting to do podcast interviews. You started your own podcast, right? And I still love the name, Legends and Losers. I wish I had the shirt that still said Legends and Losers.
I think we might have a couple around. If I do, I'll send you one.
As long as you got
I do have a couple of Legends Losers socks left.
Oh, those are great, right? Follow your different is much more acceptable, but that whole idea of legends and losers. So can you explain a little bit how you've used podcasting to get your ideas out there, how to that relationship capital outside of where you were known in the marketing world in Silicon Valley?
Yeah. So I still think podcasts might be the most underexploited marketing execution out there to this day. And most business podcasts, as you well know, absolutely suck. So where my mind was at about a decade ago when we got started on all this stuff was what I enjoy listening to are real conversations, eavesdropping conversations. And one of the greatest things about podcasts is once you get rolling in a podcast, most people, including you and I, kind of forget we're on a podcast and we just start having a conversation. It's just Chris and Tom talking. And I think the great podcast hosts make guests feel that way. And the great guests relax, get out of, oh, what are my 3 talking points that I was trained in by my PR firm? And I'm going to, and they actually just have a real human to human conversation. The other thing that's interesting about a podcast is very rarely in life today do we turn off or put down our phones, look at each other in the eye, and just fucking have a conversation. We're radically distracted all the time. So a podcast is the last medium, the only medium left for authentic dialogue. You look at the last presidential election that we had. Well, the candidates up and down the ballot that spent the most times on podcasts tended to do much better than those who didn't. Why? A television debate is a dumb thing. You're going to give somebody who's running to be president or governor or your state senator or your congressperson or what have you 2 seconds to respond to their position on abortion. That's inane and absurd.
Yeah.
Right? And so podcasting is the way we go deep. Podcasting is where we can get past the typical interview and have a real conversation. The other interesting thing about podcasting is a meaningful percentage of people, maybe you know the number, what percentage of people listen to a podcast with an earbud of some kind?
I've never seen that number, but I would imagine it is very high.
Maybe 70-something%.
It's definitely a majority.
A high percent. I mean, some people listen in their car, some people listen on a speaker, but a lot of them. And so it's really the only medium where the consumer of the content puts you in their body. We're in their ear, literally physically in their ear. And so it's a very intimate thing. And so podcasting, when done really well, can open people up to experience what a real conversation is, the natural ebbs and flows of a conversation, and get really intimate with people and topics they find interesting and important in their lives. That to me is the magic of podcasts. Real, authentic dialogue that gets captured in a way that was never possible before, that is completely different from radio or television. And I also think podcasting is helping to teach people how to have conversations, because the great podcasters are great. And this is a word we don't hear anymore, conversationalists.
That is a great compliment for someone to say, he's a great conversationalist, not a great debater. And the other thing, I think today we're all looking for authenticity, right? I pick up my phone now and it's like, oh, it's a robocall trying to sound like a human. Or I get an email and, it says, dear first name. And it just pisses me off. It's marketing that's hurting them. Whereas with podcast, it's real. It's people. Now, there are AI generated podcasts, but you can pretty much pick them out pretty quickly. It's those real
And who the
conversations.
hell really wants to listen to that?
Oh, it's crap at scale, right? And once again, it's like if I want to listen to that, I'll put something in Notebook LM and summarize something for me. But this idea of, like you said, listening in on a conversation. This is the same conversation you and I'd be having if it was over a cup of coffee or a beer or a bottle of scotch, right? Well, might be a little bit more heated if it was over a bottle of scotch.
A little more ruckus here and there, or rambunctious. The other thing from a business point of view is the greatest category designers in the world name, frame, and claim a problem, and then evangelize the solution to that problem. And if you want to be the person, the greatest moat in business is to own a problem, right? Because if you own a problem, you become the solution. And so the greatest way to do that is through a radically differentiated point of view. And as we talked about earlier, a point of view is radically differentiated intellectual capital. And so a podcast is an incredible way to play with a point of view in a conversational way with other smart people. And so I think if you're a CEO founder today and you don't have a podcast, you're crazy.
I've got a conversation coming up with Katrina. She had just posted something about that clarity for most people does not come through writing, right?
No.
For most entrepreneurs, for most C-level, you write it down after you've talked it out. And from that standpoint, podcasts are a great way to talk about that, to get feedback from a prospective client right away and to craft that message and to get it shorter and tighter and really work out what you believe.
Yeah. I mean, for years, we've called ourselves Category Pirates a business writing band. And now we think of ourselves more as a business education band. But we use the word band on purpose because, and we did it today, we're recording this on a Friday. Every Friday morning, the three of us get together and we spend roughly 2 hours jamming on the work that we're writing, the courses that we're creating currently, and what we're thinking about that needs to be in the queue after that. And we literally jam. Somebody says, well, I've been thinking about this. Oh, that's really interesting. What about that? And it's the same way where, the bass player comes in and goes, I got this really cool new groove, whatever it is, right? And the drummer starts going tack, 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 tack. And then the guitar player starts doing something over top of that. And then, the singer starts singing a melody and away you go, right? And before you know it, you've got a song and you leave the recording, you leave the tapes running, right? So you record everything in the session and bands jam their way into songs. Well, the reason they do that is for that serendipity, for that building on ideas, for that you say something, I say something, we go back and forth. A debate is something you try to win. A conversation, and Celeste Headley, the journalist, taught me this. I think you might have introduced me to her. I don't know. She said a great conversation is a game of catch. Right? If you and I are at the beach together and we're throwing a baseball around, we both got our gloves, I'm throwing it to you. We're throwing a Frisbee. I want you to catch it. You want me to catch it. Right? As opposed to I'm trying to beat you or you're trying to beat me. And so when you're jamming, you're thinking out loud. And we want each other to catch the ideas back and forth because we're trying to build on each other's ideas. Oh, I agree with what he just said. Oh, I'm not sure about what he just said. That made me think about this. That made me think about that. And it goes on and on and on. And sooner or later, hopefully some genius might show up.
Well, Christopher, thank you for jamming with us today. You've been such a blessing in my life, in the company's life, and I'm so excited for what's next, right? I didn't think things could get better than category design. And now you fast forward 10 years, the book is coming on and how that is evolved, right? You talked about a lightning strike in Play Bigger. Now there's an entire book dedicated to it.
That's right.
As you're expanding the ideas around what's ordinary to you is amazing to others. And
one of the greatest lines of the modern era. It is so true. One of the greatest things you can do to learn, of course, is to teach. You want to become a better skier? Teach people to ski, right? And that one insight of yours is the insight. And it's the insight for the AI age. And here's why. Anybody who tells you they're an expert on AI is lying. And the cool thing about AI is we're all learning, teaching, succeeding, and failing together in real time. And the greatest amongst us are sharing all of those in real time. And that's one of the primary reasons AI is growing so exponentially. We have an opportunity to create the future, to create a different future now, like no other human beings before us. It's the greatest time to be alive, and it's the greatest time in history to be a creator, a marketer, or an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Christopher, anything else before we wrap this up here?
Thank you for almost a decade of friendship, of partnership, dare I say love and support. We've been through hard times together personally and professionally. I adore you and your family. I'm so stoked for your success. I love your team. And I just treasure having you in my life. You're a real blessing in my life. And of course, I have to say, you're a veteran. I'm not confused. There's only one reason I'm alive, and that's because you and everybody who like you dedicated part of your life to saving and protecting my life. And I think our veterans are one of the greatest resources we have, and veteran entrepreneurs might be the greatest untapped source of legendary in our country. And so I think you're an inspiration to many. And the fact that you're a legendary veteran entrepreneur, you just inspire the shit out of me, Tom Schwab. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christopher. All the best.
God bless you, my friend.
What an incredible conversation with Christopher Lochhead. And what a fitting way to celebrate our 100th episode. Now, here's my big takeaway. The future belongs to the creator capitalists. That person who stops playing by the rules of the old economy and starts designing new categories of thought, of service, of impact. If you're a podcast guest, remember this. Don't just show up and share what ChatGPT or Claude could tell someone. Show up to declare what you believe. Have a clear and strong point of view. Speak to the problem and the future that you see. Create net new value. Be someone the audience turns up or turns off, but never ignores. Podcast interviews are no longer about being better. People are looking for different. The host doesn't need an expert. They need a visionary. And the audience, they're craving something that they can't get from AI. They're craving you. So here's the next step. Look at your message. Be honest and ask yourself, is this a lightning strike marketing or peanut butter marketing? Then go out, design your category, and show up on every interview as that creator capitalist that today the world needs more than ever. Thank you to Christopher, and thank you for being part of this journey. Here's to the next 100 episodes.